how would you translate that feeling, that sensation of being your authentic self? What does it feel like?
Ultimately, what I love about being inside my authentic self, it's like coming home. I often feel as if, people get bounced around in the world. I love people, but people go up and down. Everything goes up and down in the world. And when I remember to retreat deeply within myself, again, I feel like I'm coming home. I almost feel like there's part of me that's cheering me on, or welcome back. It's glad to see you. We've been waiting patiently for you. We all have access to this point, at this point within ourselves, every single moment. Now, I wouldn't say that to somebody in the midst of trauma. If somebody's child was diagnosed with a brain tumor, I'm not going to say, oh, find your inner peace. But the thing I love about our authentic selves and finding our inner peace and inner knowing is we can always access it. It's always present for every human being. And it's such a source of light and love and hope and peace. So it's a feeling, but it's more in essence. It's hard to explain, but when I'm in there, it feels pretty wonderful, I will say.
Is the authentic self also the inner knowing and also the inner voice, intuition? Are they all one and the same, Nate?
I would say they're a little different. The inner voice is how we choose what we focus on. I say to my clients, imagine you're on a sunny beach and think of how that feels. And then I say, well, now imagine you're stuck in a snowstorm or stuck in the mud. And then I ask them, who did the switching? Our inner voice is sort of what Michael Singer calls the seat of our consciousness. It's our ability to talk to ourselves. And it's a very distinct part of ourselves. Our inner knowing is a little different, at least for me. Our inner knowing is our wisdom, is our instinct, is our true self. And for me, the inner knowing is part of our authentic self, but it's a part I turn to if I'm trying to decide whether to move towards something or move away from something. If I'm trying to decide where to spend my time and energy, I tune into this inner knowing, and it's never wrong. If I get too caught up in my thoughts, my worries, maybe trying to control things I can't control, I often feel like my mind's kind of in a tizzy. When I tune into my inner knowing, it's like a lighthouse. It guides me. Sometimes I'm not sure, and I put it in a place inside myself I call my notch. I'm not sure why I call it that, but I put it into this place and I just wait for the answer. I think we've all had this experience. We're lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, around and round and round, feeling like there's no solution. And then we wake up the next day and we're in the shower or walking on the beach, as I know you and Chris said like to do. And all of a sudden, the answer comes to you. That's our inner knowing. And clearly the happiest people, the most peaceful people, use their inner voice to tune into their authentic self. Rather than go round and round in their heads about things, turn into this deeper knowing and wisdom that's always there. We always have access to it. We just need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and speaking of visualizations, there's one that you mentioned for highly sensitive people.
Yeah, as a highly sensitive person that feels things deeply and wants everybody to love me and often feels like I go up and down based on my last conversation with somebody, I developed this visualization and I would love to share it.
Yeah, please.
So I use this with my clients all the time. I say, imagine you're living in this town, and I have the town in New Mexico just because I love New Mexico. And I say there's a fence around this town, and everybody's identity in this town is based on their relationships, is based on their ability to take care of other people. Nobody has an individual sense of identity, of who they are. And I say, let's imagine you become the super caregiver, and you spend years and years ministering to the needs of everybody around you. And then one day, you're not feeling well or you're tired and you sit underneath the tree and you're shamed for being selfish, for not caregiving anymore. And you feel hurt and exhausted and frustrated. And you wander around the edge of town as it gets dark. And then you see a hole in the fence and you slip through this hole. And all of a sudden you're standing out in the desert and there's a big full moon, bright stars, you can find your way. You feel free. There's nobody to take care of except yourself. You feel unburdened. So you walk across the desert and you start walking up this mountain path and you find an abandoned cabin and you go inside the cabin. It has everything you want and need. And you sit on the front steps of this cabin in a rocking chair and meditate and find a sea and an ocean of inner peace. You tune into your deep inner world. Eventually, you go into this comfortable bed and fall asleep. You wake up refreshed the next day. You fix up your cabin just as you want it. You live out your bliss. You play the guitar that's in the corner of the cabin. You journal. You sing. You walk on the side of the mountain. After a couple days, you start to feel, oh my goodness, what about all those people I used to take care of? So you go back into the town and you're astonished to find everybody seems to be doing okay. A few people noticed you're gone, but you realize the town can exist without you. So you return to the sanctity, excitedly, of your own cabin. It's your own authentic self, your own inner world. And rather than decide and take on the responsibility for everybody's happiness, you start inviting selected people to your cabin to minister to their needs, people you know you can help, but you set limits and boundaries. You do what you can, but you don't take it all on. And actually, other people are relieved that you don't take on all of their pain. We don't help people when we take on all of their pain. So you actually begin to be seen as kind of a mystic, kind of a visionary leader. And people come to you and you give them what you can. But your life is defined by your existence in your own world. You help other people find their own cabins. And eventually the entire town disbands and everybody builds their own little unique cabin. And you come together for campfires and for community. But again, when I do this with my clients, I have them meditate and tune into this deeper part within themselves. Because again, too much of my life is defined by other people. I love people, but for far too long, I've allowed my insecurities to make me feel like, oh, I have to have everybody like me, or what if people are mad at me or whatever. I love the freedom of my internal world. And every day I live, I'm 68 years old, I spend more and more time in my own cabin. And again, it doesn't make me selfish or conceited or self-centered. It actually fills me with an abundance of love and care I can pass on to other people.
That's interesting. Like, we need to be reminded of these things. It's almost like borrowing that inner voice from the other person. So I listen to my inner voice through you. That's what it feels like.
I think we all know these things instinctively. We just have to practice them again. We just have to make them the focus of our lives. We have to just put energy into experiencing it. And again, it's hard to put into words because being deeply in our authentic self is such a rich experience. It defies words, just like universal consciousness or spiritual energy, or if you're religious, this is your sense of God. These are really, really deep concepts that transcend words. It's just a feeling. It's just an experience that's just beautiful and expansive. When I'm in my deep internal, my authentic self, it's not only my peace. I feel the wisdom and peace and love of everybody. When I'm in my stream of inner peace, it's not just my stream. I like the uniqueness of my authentic self, but I just feel like I'm tuning into a universal energy. In a lot of ways, I feel like people like you and me that care so much about giving, we're just taking love and light from everywhere we can in the universe and just passing it on. It's not ours. We're just tuning into an expansiveness of love and consciousness.